it's not easy. Obviously, I keep confronting the same lesson myself, so, it's not something you're going to learn right away. And even if you know it in your heart, you still want to help other people. You still want to help elicit change in them, because the desire to help people is so strong. The desire to bring the people you love up to a better level where they can really enjoy and appreciate the world around them. If you can only support creators who provide value and make you think, please consider contributing to my Patreon page the next time you watch one of my videos. Hello everybody and welcome. Today I want to talk about one of the most important lessons that one can learn in life, and it's also one of the most frustrating lessons, and usually one that you're confronted with over and over again, and that is the concept that you can only help somebody who's willing to be helped. And I don't know why this is such a challenging concept for me in particular, and possibly for you as well. But there are people in my life that, they decide to do something with their life or live in a particular way, and I see it and go, well, you could have a better life if you just do this. It could be so much better if you just, alter your behavior in this small way. If you focus on the good rather than the bad, and things like that. And in particular, when it comes to, say, like immediate family members or like close friends, usually that desire to help them figure things out is really, really intense, and you don't really want to accept that they aren't quite ready for whatever change it is you're suggesting. And I think part of the reason why it's so challenging is because you know how destructive their path could potentially be. Possibly. You might know. You can see how far it could end up taking them down a path that they really don't want. And it's not necessarily that they don't want it, but that you believe they don't want it. So, if somebody's following a path that could lead to prostitution, you're going to be like, whoa, why are you doing that? That's really not where you want to go. But, maybe that's a lesson they need to learn. It's really hard to say, but you do probably understand what I mean. Like if you see somebody making a bad decision, you're like, oh, wait, you really don't want to make that choice, It's going to be hard. It's not going to be fun. But sometimes the best lessons come through the challenge, and maybe some people need to face a particularly difficult challenge in order to learn specific lessons. It wouldn't take such an extreme for you necessarily to make the change, but it might for them. And when I was watching this simulated reality video, where he was explaining how life kind of works and whatnot if we live in a simulated reality, he was talking about how in video games, for example, some people choose the path with the most monsters intentionally. They choose the path that's the most difficult, specifically because there's a lot of challenge there, specifically because there are a lot of enemies to fight, a lot of obstacles to overcome. Whereas for you, you've been down that road before, so you're like, well, why don't we take this one that has, like, very few monsters on it, and, isn't going to be all that challenging. Or it's going to be challenging in its own way, but not because you have a lot of enemies to battle, merely because, you still have to go on the journey. But from a video game perspective, this makes a lot of sense, because when I first play video games, I usually go and search for all the monsters, seeing if I can overcome all the challenges. And then once I've played through once, then I start to streamline, and I go, okay, well now I don't need to be the person who wipes out all of the enemies. Now I can just focus on, figuring out the details of this game, what exactly this game can do, what are its limits, and all these other things. And then the more you play, the more you go through this process, and eventually you even start to use cheat codes, because those can help you get through whatever challenging spots you need to in order to really test the boundaries. And if you look at life in this way, there are those of us who are just starting the game who want to find all the challenges. They want to see the true depth of the programming. They want to discover the true challenge that the creators have presented for them. Whereas those of us who have been playing for a while, we no longer need to see the full challenge anymore. We're like, I already did that. I'm already past that. You know, I don't need to confront all the monsters anymore. It's a waste of time. So, you know, for those of us who have been in the game for a while or who have learned that lesson already, we go, well, life is so much easier if you just do this. Life is so much easier if you don't confront all the monsters, you know, and then you really get to have more fun because you're testing the limits and you're exploring the boundaries and all these other things. You're really finding how far you can stretch this thing, which is way more interesting than playing within the confines of the game that's already been created for you. And that makes sense, you know, for those of us who do recognize that there's so much potential in this than just doing the game as it's presented to us. You know, we find a lot of joy in exploring these boundaries. We find a lot of joy in pushing the box open, you know, stepping outside of the rules and all these other things. We're the modders, you know, the ones who put in a new twist or whatever in the game. And in the game of life, this is not actually cheating in regards to like how it would be in regular games. Or I suppose it is, but it's not a bad thing, just as it's not necessarily a bad thing to use cheat codes in some video games. Usually it's bad if you're competing against, say, like other people, and you use cheat codes to best them. But if it's just you playing, the only person who could potentially suffer from cheat codes is you. And usually the only way you're going to suffer is because it became too easy. And, you know, no longer presents a challenge, which isn't going to happen in life because it's a very diverse game and it has lots of concepts that even those of us who have been here for a while don't know about. So, you know, there's always going to be a challenge in life. And even if there isn't, you always get to have the fun of interacting with people who are really into confronting the challenge and the difficulty. So, when you use cheat codes, when you mod the game, it's actually an enhancement in the game of life because it doesn't detract from the game overall. Whereas in regular video games, it could detract from the experience. You know, like it takes part of the challenge away and then you're like, well, now it's just too easy. Yeah, it's an interesting concept, and it's quite challenging when you can see this potential for somebody else. When you're like, I can see how life would be so much easier for you. I can see how change would help you, you know, move through things easier, how you could get the goals that you set for yourself without too much challenge, you know, without adding extra challenge to it, and so on and so forth. And a part of me, I think, will always want to change other people, you know, to inspire everybody to accept what I perceive as truth and, you know, move in the direction of this easier lifestyle, you know, to become a modder rather than just a player. And I think part of the reason why I started this YouTube channel was for that reason, you know, like I wanted to reach the people who hadn't changed yet, who weren't ready to change yet, and convince them that they should. And the reality is, even if those people do see this video, they might not necessarily want to follow the path that I lead them to. And that's usually where negative comments and stuff comes in, is somebody sees it and goes, well, I don't want that. And it's not necessarily a conscious decision, you know, you want to face the challenge because you don't know the full extent of the challenge. And that's kind of a subconscious thing. You don't necessarily go, oh yeah, I want to make life as hard as it can be. But I do know that for me, for example, if I could be happy at a standard job, my life would be a lot easier. So some part of me has chosen innately to follow a more challenging path, specifically because it's more challenging, it would seem. A part of me decided we're going to follow this path that almost nobody follows and force you to live this life that is challenging but also thrilling at the same time. So I'm confronting a new kind of challenge within my own life. And a lot of people do look at me and go, well, if you just went and got a job, your life would be so much easier. And I look at that and go, well, yeah, my life would be so much easier. The problem is, I can't stand that life. I cannot bring myself to live that kind of life. So, clearly I've chosen a challenging path, and despite the advice of everybody else, I continue to follow this path. And so, from that perspective, I can understand why somebody would choose the course that they're on. The difference being that I choose to do the things that I do because they bring me joy, and they sometimes choose to do things that keep them in depression or anger or sadness. And I'm like, well, when it comes to specifics, like, say, jobs and whatnot, I can understand the difference. It's a little bit harder when it comes to emotional well-being, because, you could choose whatever path you wanted to if you're feeling good and be fine. But if you're journeying through the emotion side of it, I have a hard time letting you just do that. Letting you just be upset and angry and depressed, because I think your life would be so much easier if you were happy, more productive. You would have a better chance of making everything good, so on and so forth. So the emotional side is really challenging for me. I really want to help the people who continue to live in negative states, but I can only help them if they're willing to be helped, and this is hard to do. So if you fall into this kind of pothole as well, then, I encourage you to try to let go also. It's not easy. Obviously, I keep confronting this same lesson myself, so, it's not something you're going to learn right away. And even if you know it in your heart, you still want to help other people. You still want to help elicit change in them, because the desire to help people is so strong. The desire to bring the people you love up to a better level where they can really enjoy and appreciate the world around them. You really want them to be there, so that they can really connect with you and really start to push the boundaries and explore and enjoy things and have fun with the game, which they don't appear to be doing at their current level. So, yeah, that's everything that I have to say today. I hope that if you're somebody who struggles with this concept like me, this is a reminder to you to just kind of let go of the reins a little bit and allow people to make the mistakes that they need to make and follow the path that they need to follow. I know it's hard. I really get it. It is not easy to watch somebody suffer, and I don't mean that you should give up on helping them, but don't get frustrated if they don't change. Don't bring yourself down because they're not taking your advice. Allow them to follow the path they need to, and then if they cannot make the change yet, your role is merely to be there to pick them up when they fall. And you don't want to watch them fall, but you can't stop people from getting hurt. So, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. I hope this got you thinking. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell. And if you have any comments, questions, or ideas for videos, feel free to leave those in the comments, and I will do my best to respond to your wishes. So, thanks for watching. Hope to see you again soon. Bye.